All right, in this video, we are going to be creating the basic enemy. It's going to move towards us, and that's pretty much going to be it. However, there's a little bit of setup, so it's going to take a bit of time to get through, and we're going to have to modify a few things that we've done, such as the test level, and write a little bit of code. We'll also be going back and adding some groups to our previous objects, such as the player. So let's get into it. Like the third time I've done this video now. The first time it didn't record in 1080, so I fixed that. My previous videos also didn't record in 1080, but I've definitely fixed it now. And the sound was off for the second time, so I had it muted. Let's just check. Yes, it is recording. So let's get into it. So I want to try and keep this under 30 minutes, under 25 would be ideal. And if you see me looking over that way a bit more than right at the screen there, it's because I've already written this project and I am just kind of referring back to things that I've done. So the first thing we're going to need to do is open up our test level scene. And what I'm going to do here is a little bit counterproductive. So let me just open up the previous one that I've done here. We need to add in navigation options here. So we need to add in navigation. And we're actually going to pull this up right here. And we're going to add in a navigation mesh instance. And that's going to be a child of navigation. So it should go navigation, then navigation mesh instance. And now what I'm going to do is drag this plane onto there. With this plane, I'm going to go to the inspector and down to the transform of the plane and scale it up by 2. It's initially it's just a little bit small. It's a little bit cramped. That's fine. We can scale it in Godot. It's not a big deal. Now the navigation mesh instance here is going to be, we're going to click new navigation mesh, and then we're going to click on that. The default should actually work fine. If you click bake mesh, you should see that. If you don't, it may be that your scene is too small and you need to scale it up like I did. That's actually the reason that I scaled it up. If I didn't scale it up, it would have been too small and it wouldn't have been able to kind of calculate these pathways through here. They would be considered to be the pathways too tight. So with that done, we're just going to save this, Control S, we can close that test level now. You will notice, however, that when you go back to your main world, it looks like you've got two kind of overlapping ones, the scaled up one and the small one. To fix that, just open your test scene again and turn this off. You can't actually get rid of this at all. So this is the original mesh from Blender, and we can't change the structure of this because we inherited from that original model. But what we can do is just make a copy of that, which is what happened here, and we can make that original one invisible. Since it doesn't have a collision shape with it, it just blended, Godot's just going to ignore it, so no problem. All right, so that's our, oops, if I save this and go back to the world, there we go. Okay, so we can see the nav mesh there. It's all good. Then what we're going to do is create a new scene. And this one I'm going to add in as a kinematic body, I think. Let me double check what I did before. No, yeah, it's a kinematic body. So other node, you can type kinematic body at the top there to find it. And the kinematic body, of course, needs a collision shape. We're going to put in, it's going to be a capsule on the right-hand side. Now, I've already got measurements for this. So I'm going to put these in, but the transform, we're going to rotate it 90 on the X angle. Now you may want to play around with these measurements here, but my measurements look like this. This is going to be 0.5. The height is going to be 1, and the margin is going to be 0.004. Actually, all I changed was the radius to bring that in. So underneath here, underneath the kinematic body, we're also going to add in an animated sprite 3D. We're not going to add the 2D one, we're going to add the 3D one. And we want two other things as well, a raycast and a timer. Now while we're here, this kinematic body, we're going to go to nodes and add it to a group called enemy. And click add. We're also going to do that with some other things shortly. Now we're going to save this scene just before we go any further. And before I do that, I'm going to rename this to be called enemy basic grunt. So this is going to be our basic grunt enemy. Save this as enemy basic grunt. Now I need some sprites for this. I've already imported my sprites. The sprites that I'm going to use is the auto shotgun guy from Realm 667. And I'm going to go ahead and set up the animated sprite 3D here. So let's go here, create a new sprite frames, and let's go. So this here, this animated 3D sprite allows us to create a sequence of sprites or animations using individual sprites. If we were using a sprite sheet, we would do it a different way. We'd use an animation tree. It'd take a lot longer to set up. It'd be a lot more robust, but this here works fine. So I'm going to change this default to be idle, and I'm just going to use the first sprite there. He's probably not going to be idle that much, so it's all good. Then I'm going to have a new one and call it walking. Now this is where things get a little bit annoying in here and how these sprites are usually laid out. Because they're laid out in like a so that you can kind of see the guy walking around in 360 degrees. We're going to keep it pretty simple. We're only going to have him ever face us. So these ones here, you'll have to kind of look at them. You can see them down here, or you may have to look at them in Windows preview to see them. But the ones that you can kind of tell are facing the front are the ones that we want, and there's 4 of them. So I'm going to grab those and drag them in. Now, it looks like it's got some weird shading on here, but it's actually not an issue in there. I'm not sure why it comes through dark down the bottom here. If anyone knows, let me know. Then we want to have the shoot animation. The shoot animation I think it's this one. That's one of them, and then there's this one. So there's 2 shoot animations there, and I know which ones they are. You'll have to figure it out depending on which sprite you're using. So there's the shoot animation. We've got a die animation. This is easy. It's from this one here all the way down to here, I think. Yep, that's it. We've got an explode animation, which is this one down to this one. And we've also got a hit animation, so when he gets injured, hit. The hit one, what does the hit one look like? Is it that one? Oops, no, it's definitely not that. Get rid of those. Is it that one? I think it might be that one. Yeah, it is. That's that one. Okay, so that's the hit animation there. I'm not sure what name it would be in a different file, but this is for the auto shotgun guy. That's the hit animation. I'm actually going to duplicate that. What did I just do? Oops. Just delete that node there. Okay, go back into here. Duplicate and paste. You can't Control C, Control V. If you Control C, Control V, it's going to copy this node and then paste it. Again, if you want to copy and paste frames, you've got to use these buttons in here. All right, so I'm just making that a little bit longer so it doesn't just kind of flash up and immediately disappear. It's got at least 2 frames in there. The explode one, I want to make sure it doesn't loop. Same with die. All of these ones can loop, and that's fine. Okay. So now that we've got this done here, let's just go and save that. Go back to our player, and in the player, we're going to go to Node, Groups, making sure we've got the player selected there, and type player for the group and hit enter. So we're going to add them to that. Control S. For the test level though, we're going to click on navigation. We'll go to groups and we're going to call this nav mesh and hit enter. We're going to reference these things from the enemy grunt, and this is just going to make it easier to find them. So we're going to add a script, enemy basic grunt, and here we go. So this is what the script is going to look like. We're going to need a few different variables at the start. So onReadyVar, what onReady does is just when the program, well, when this thing enters the tree, when it enters the scene tree, when it's ready to go, it's loaded all its different nodes, it's ready to kind of be put into action in the program, that's when the onReady variables are going to kind of initialize. So if we tried to do this just without it actually being in the tree, it's going to crash and give us some problems. So we're going to say onReady var nav equals get tree. That gets the entire tree, all the nodes in the game, and get nodes in the group. We're going to get all the nodes in the group nav mesh. That's going to give us a list of everything. and we're going to access the first element of it. If you remember from Python, when we did Python in class, or if you've done Python before, any kind of programming language, the first element of a list is always the 0th element. So we're just going to grab that because there's only one nav mesh. There should be. If there's more, that's the problem. Equals get tree dot get nodes in group, and this is going to be player, and we'll grab that. Now there are other ways to reference variables. Um, this is fine. It may not be the best way. Maybe someone wants to correct me on that. That's all good. So we're going to have a path here. Hold the path coordinates um, from the enemy to the player. Okay, so we're going to keep track of path coordinates from the enemy to the player. Var uh, current path index, okay, equals 0. So keep track of which coordinate to go to. So it's going to start at the first coordinate in this path index. Variable speed equals 3. You can play with that. Variable health equals 20. You can play with that. And we need some variables here. So we're going to have func ready, pass, so some functions here. Func take damage, damage amount, pass, func underscore physics process, pass, func underscore move to target, pass, and func death, pass. All right, so we've got these functions set up. These are the ones that we will need. We'll probably need some more later on. So let's go ahead and add func shoot as well. And we'll say target. Okay, so and pass. We won't need that one yet. Let's go ahead and first of all, just add in this move to. This is going to be what creates the path. I'm actually going to call this find path. Find path. So in here, path equals new nav, sorry, not new, nav dot get simple path. Why have I got an error there? Oh, that's all good. Get simple path. And in here, we tell it two things, from and to. So get simple path, which is a method of the nav mesh. We're going to find a simple path. All it needs to know is which 2 points. Find the path between 2 points. So one of them is going to be the global transform.origin. Now this here is well, let's have a look at it, what it actually is. We go to the inspector, we click on our enemy basic grunt. This here is the transform. The global transform refers to its exact position in the 3D world. This refers to its position inside this particular node system, but that will change. So let's go ahead and go back to our script. So that's saying where the player is, where the enemy is to the target. That's where we want to get to. So the target is going to be the player, but we'll tell it that later. And then path index equals 0. So we're going to force that every time we create a new path, set the path index back to 0. So it always starts moving towards the first coordinate in this list. Then we've got, this one's going to be really simple. Take damage. It's just going to be health minus equals damage amount. And then physics process. We'll check another bit of code here. If health is less than or equal to 0, death. Okay, and then we'll go into the physics process. So this is where the movement's going to happen. If the path index is less than the path size, so let's say there's 5 coordinates in the path size, or in this path list, and we are on index 0. That means that we're at the first coordinate. So the index is 0 is less than the path size. It means we still got coordinates to move to. So we're going to execute this code and make it move. So then what we need to do is find a direction that it's going to move in. So var direction equals, and we're going to get the path to move to. So path index, and subtract the current position of the player. Global transform dot, sorry, of the enemy. I keep saying player, but I mean enemy, of the agent. If direction dot length, because what this is going to do is give us a vector 3. It's not actually a direction. It's not like in radians or north, south, east, west, or whatever. It's actually going to give us a 3-dimensional vector saying this is the straightest line from here to the next coordinate. And if the length of that line is less than 1 unit in Godot, we're just going to assume that we've got there. We've reached it already, because it's going to keep doing this every physics process. So we've gotten really close. We're going to go path index plus equals 1. We're going to increase it and say, well, go to the next one. And then else, we're going to say find path. So else, I spelled that wrong. If the path index is greater than the path size or equal to it, we're going to find a new path. We must be at the end of the coordinates. We must have got to the end of where we were going. We're going to find a new path. And that is pretty much it. So to find path, we need to say where to find the path to. And we're going to say the player, which we've got a reference to up here, dot global transform dot origin. So we're going to get the position of the player. And I'm just wanting to double check that that's right. No, it's not. That does not go there at all. So we will need that code later. And I don't know why I put it in there. I was kind of looking in the wrong place over on the left. We're going to move, and slide. We will need that in a minute. So move and slide. And we're going to go direction dot normalize. Now, what normalize does, if you remember from the player code, it kind of makes it so that even on diagonals, it's still the same distance as if it was like straight lines. Multiplied by speed, comma, vector 3 up. That's to do with gravity and other things. So we'll put that in there. Then I'm going to go back here and put an else and put that code back in there. Okay, so I had that in the wrong place. That should be fine. So when it reaches the end of the path, then we're going to find a new path and get it to there. That way it's always going to go to the last place that it saw the player and then move to the player. Now, I don't think this will work yet. We're going to add in the death code. I'm just going to copy this death code across and you'll see what it does. And you can write it down. So when the enemy dies, we're going to set the process to false. So it's not going to run process, which we don't have, but it doesn't matter. It's going to set physics process to false. So it won't run this code anymore. It's not going to move anymore. It's not going to create new paths. We're going to set the collision shape to be disabled. So dot disabled equals true. So the player can walk through the body on the ground. If the health is less than -20, we're going to play the explode animation, else we're going to play the die animation. Since it won't loop, it's just going to get to the end of that animation and stop. It'll just stay there. Now, you might be saying, well, what does this mean if health is less than -20? So in the next video, we're going to make the gun. And you'll be able to shoot the enemy. He's got 20 health. The gun might do 8 damage, 3 shots to kill him. So once it gets to, it'll go 12, then 4, then -4. It's just going to play die animation. But if you hit him with the rocket launcher, which might do 50 damage, immediately it's going to hit him. He's going to go -30, and so that's less than -20, and he's going to explode. So we've got some variable death animations in there. I'm not sure what this here is. Let's close that. Let's see if this actually works. It should all work nice. And let's see. So if I run this program, I'll go to world, I'll hit that. Cool. I don't actually have an enemy in my world. So let's go ahead and put him in the world. He's in the scenes, enemy basic grunt. In there. And he's really tiny. That's what I forgot to do. Okay, so I knew there was something I'd forgotten to do. Let's go back to here. We're going to make a few changes to this here. So the animated sprite, what I would like to do is to change some values on here. First of all, if I go and click on this and go explode and then go back to animated, oh, I don't need to click on that, sorry. Change this to explode and hit plane. You'll see that because each sprite is a different size, um, it doesn't quite work. And it kind of, if his feet were down here, well, now they're up here. It's going to be floating. So what we need to do is make some adjustments. I'm going to put that back on idle. I'll put it on walk actually. Okay, so that's walking. And we need to make some adjustments here. First adjustment I'm going to make is down on the transform. I'm going to scale it by 2 on all those axes. So that's done that there. And then I'm going to not center this sprite. So it's up there. And then I am going to go ahead and set this offset to be probably about negative 15, almost 16, like that there. Okay, so it's roughly kind of in the middle of his feet. Then I'm just going to drag this down so it's kind of at the bottom there. And I think I'm just trying to look back at what I actually set here. Did I put, yeah, I put the scale of the sprite up a bit more. I put the scale up to 3.5, 3.5, 3.5. And then I was able to move him down to his feet were kind of touching the bottom of that there. And it's kind of all within that bounds. One last thing I want to do is go to flags and change billboard to Y billboard. That way I can look at it and it will always face the character, but it won't kind of still look up and down. If you change it to just enabled, then it does that, which can do really strange things, especially when you're looking down at the enemy. So we just want it to Y billboard. You can tick shaded as well if you want, but don't need that yet. Okay, so with this done, I'm going to save that and go back to world. Grunt's in there, so good. We'll make sure he's just a bit above the scene. No, he can stay there. All right, and I can hit play. This guy should move towards me. Or, yeah, so he's moving towards me. He's going to hunt me down. If I go and run all the way down here, in a minute, he should either come through that corridor or that one. There he is. He's sneaking around. Cool. So there we go. We've got the very basic AI. The enemy is just going to hunt us down ruthlessly, and we can fix that up later. In the next video, we'll look at creating the basic gun.